Okay, so another few elasticity questions as a run through. This one is a multiple choice question, so it would appear in the first 20 marks of the paper. If it was a AS question, it'd be 3 marks plus the 1 mark for the multiple choice. If it was an A level paper, it would be 4 marks, so KAA plus 1A if you're an A level student. Question: the diagram below illustrates the demand curve faced by a chocolate bar producer in Hong Kong. You've got a change in terms of a fall in price on this axis from 10 Hong Kong dollars to 8 Hong Kong dollars. You've got an increase in quantity from 2,000 to 4,000, and then the multiple choice question, which will relate to that. You've also got a calculate question, the PD for chocolate in Hong Kong, and also calculate the new revenue. By doing, there's two ways to look at this. One of them is that you should be able to see that the price change leads to a small loss of revenue and a big gain in revenue. So that should give you an indicator that it's elastic. And if it's elastic and the price goes down, the revenue should rise. So if you're looking down that price change, there's going to be a rise in revenue. It says there's a rise in revenue there, it says there's a rise in revenue there. So it can't be those two. Because price is inelastic, because price is elastic, well, you know that there's a price fall and that the revenue would only rise if it was price elastic. So the answer here for the key would be C. When it comes to calculating the PED, the knowledge mark would be from getting the formula right. So percentage change in quantity demanded, there's my little change triangle there, over percentage change in price. If you've got a calculator, you can work this out, but these are quite straightforward. So you've got change of 2 is a percentage of 10, and you've got a percentage change of 2 is a percentage of 2. So there we have a 20% fall, and here we have 100% increase in revenue. Sorry, 100% increase in demand. So it would be 100 over 20. So we have an elasticity of -5, or PED of -5. Remember, it's always negative because this 20% fall would be the negative, and then you've got a positive, which would be an increase over here. So I should be accurate here and put the positive there and the negative there, and that would give the negative PED of 5. So we've got the calculation of that within those marks. The revenue, you've got thousands along here, so be careful if it's asking you to calculate something, you don't just use the 4, because it's telling you it's thousands there. So you've got 4,000 multiplied by the price, which is 8, so the new revenue would be 32,000. If the question was slightly different and asked you to calculate the change between the revenues, the original revenue would be 10 times 2,000, so you'd have 20,000 as the initial revenue, or the old revenue, and the 32,000, just to be accurate, it's Hong Kong dollars. But if you wanted to find out the difference, then it would just be 32, or the 20 minus the 32, so there'd be an increase of 12,000 in terms of the revenue. Next question is another example of a multiple choice question. This one is talking about cross price elasticities, so XED. Question is, the table below shows the estimated cross price elasticities of various food groups within respect to fruit in South Africa. So that's our price of good B, and the quantity demanded of good A, which is the fruit. So fruit's good A, and then these are all good Bs. It says from the table it could be deducted that in South Africa, now we've got different types of goods here, but straight away we should be able to cross that off because that's talking about YED, inferior goods. We can cross this one off because price elasticity of demand is not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is complements and substitutes. So party season, nearly Christmas, positive substitutes, negative complements. Let's have a look at fruit and grains. So fruit and grains are complements. We've got positive there, but that tells us that's substitutes, so it can't be that one. Fruit and dairy are complements. Fruit and dairy, negative complements, so we know that that one's correct. C goes in there. Explain the rise or the effect of a rise in the price of fruit. 3 marks if it's an AS question, 4 if it was an A-level question. The K part is going to be the formula or the definition, so percentage change. Put my little triangle in there. Quantity demanded of good A, but percentage change in the price of good B. You could also remember it as the responsiveness of quantity demanded of good A to a change in the price of good B. In terms of our A mark, we could apply a different, so we know that fruit and dairy are complements, so it's unlikely we'd get another mark for that, but we then could talk about the ones that are substitutes. So grains are substitutes. And you could say that there is no relationship between vegetables and fruit. They are neither a complement or a substitute. You could also talk about the strength. So as all of them are less than 1, positive or negative, so that's the grains are less than 1, meat and fish are greater than -1, then they are all inelastic, or at least meat, grains and dairy are, and they are kind of weak complements and weak substitutes. And then just explaining what the effect would be on the demand of other things. So you could say that the rise in the price of fruit should have the effect of the complement demand going down. So meat and fish and dairy and in terms of the substitutes, the demand would go up. So there's kind of an inverse relationship there for that. So grain and grains would increase. This question was based on the case study, so I've got the relevant part of the case study which says more people are consuming beef, pork and chicken than ever before. Meat consumption will continue to increase, especially in rural China. When people have more income, they will eat more meat, especially pork. So it says, with reference to extract 2, explain whether pork is a normal or an inferior good, 4 marks. Err on the side of caution, just in KAA. So if it's talking about incomes, demand, normal inferior goods, it's talking about income elasticity, so percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in incomes, or responsiveness of quantity demanded to a change in incomes. You've got rising incomes, and then you've also got rising demand, which means that it is positive YED, as both of those things would be positive. A 10% increase in income would lead to at least a 10% more or less, but positive increase in demand. So if it's positive YED, then it has to be a normal good. That application of a 10% increase in income would equal something positive, but just as an example of a 10% increase in demand, that would give you a YED of 1. And that could give you the other mark in terms of the analysis. Just stating that it's a normal good would be enough there. You might talk about why it's not an inferior good. The inferior goods are when incomes rise, demand falls, and that's not what's happening here. Okay, so again, a case study question. This one says using the concept of income elasticity of demand. So we know it's going to be about YED. Examine. So we know this is an evaluation question. So we're going to need 2 sides to this answer. The likely impact. So we know we need kind of impacts. What's going to be the outcomes of declining incomes? This is the change on the hotel industry. So it's the impact on a business in India. So our K, A, and A's. The formula for YED, same in the last question. Percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in income. The application, we've got the change here. Either it says that the falling consumer incomes are having an impact on the industry. This has reduced the number of tourists, so we can tell that it's going to be a fall in demand. So we have a normal good here, which leads to the price of them falling. Declining consumer incomes have resulted in most hotels operating about 50% capacity. That's one good bit of A. You can be even more accurate because it goes on to say that on average, and that average there is going to be a very useful way to evaluate. Hotel occupancy has dropped from 71% to 58.3%. So that's a good bit of application. In terms of the analysis, well, we've said that it's a normal good. So incomes fall, normal good, demand will fall, and we'll just draw a supply and demand diagram to show that fall in demand. We could also add a little bit to the data, or the graph, in terms of that is the old revenue, and we've got a loss of revenue here. In terms of our impacts, if revenue is going down, then potentially profits are going down. This could lead to closures. It could lead to staff being made redundant, or just job losses. And it could reduce their ability to invest in the future. Okay, now what we want to evaluate is why those impacts might not be significant. Or why they might not happen at all. So even if there are lower prices, it does say here that it's an average hotel occupancy. So depending on the elasticity or the YED, if it's very inelastic or it's a necessity normal good, then the change would be very small. You could also talk about that hotels might be able to cross-subsidise. So it might be that they have hotels in other countries where they can make money. It could also be that they have a lot of retained profits from previous years, so that they don't have to lay off workers or make them redundant. And lastly, you could also talk about time as a wee step, and it might only be a short-term change, and that if economic growth rises again, then they may not need to lay anybody off.